Hi, Raed. It's so nice to meet you. Hi, how are you?
Hello, it's very good to meet you and see you.
Yeah, wonderful that you take time for this interview. And I think that it is so interesting to talk about your work. You are presenting at the KunstFestSpiele a work which is really fascinating to me. It's called The Sea Between My Soul. And it was originally planned as a stage play. It's a kind of rock musical. Now it's being brought to us in the form of a film due to the COVID situation, of course. And the the topic is actually the long history of the fatalities in the Mediterranean Sea. And we are meeting throughout this musical, throughout this work, different personalities, different characters, but you chose to actually not bring them on stage, but to let them being played by animals, by taxidermy, by prepared animals. So that's a very fascinating thought, of course. Why did you choose animals for this work?
I've been always fascinated with the animal world in general, and I've did few works before that in small sculptural forms where animals are singing. But this is my kind of biggest installation in relation to animals. And since very long time in history, I always thought that there is wisdom always came on the tongues of animals. In children's stories, in there is an amazing old Arab book called Kalila wa Dimna, which is stories that's always told on from animals, and mostly they are wise stories and anecdotes. Originally, the book is originated it started in India, and then it got translated in the 13th century, probably in Arabic, or probably maybe I'm mistaken. Anyway, it's very important book, and as well, I've been fascinated in the animal world, and I said it's each species has a different kind of thing to tell us, but in a way, there is some kind of harmony in that word that we don't really get, and I thought it will be more truthful
Right.
to say it on from their own perspective somehow.
Yeah, it's very fascinating that basically, I mean, obviously they don't move since they are stuffed animals, prepared animals. But on the other hand, through the songs, they become very lively, they become very alive, and they tell us their stories. And we are immediately thinking of them in a kind of human sort of way. And only later we understand that all of them are actually deceased. So you are playing with these worlds of life and death. You are sort of crossing the border. Was that sort of the reason to take animals that are taxidermy animals?
For me, it was the topic is extremely important for me, which is death.
Mhm.
The musical is about death. Death, it's of course something morbid, but it's an inevitable truth. We're all going to die. And I thought there will be not, there won't be a better representation of death beside death itself. So
Yeah. Mhm.
I wanted the dead animals to be on stage. Uh, but also there is something like uncanny in the situation. Also, they are dead, but they look alive.
Right.
There's something ghostly in this, shocking little bit. They are looking at you, and then suddenly they became rock stars and they tell their stories. Each one died in a different way. They live in a city. They took over a city, and that city was that will you see in the piece. It's a kind of a collection of cityscapes from the Mediterranean. So it's an imagined city kind of. Few buildings are from different places on the Mediterranean Sea, from Barcelona to Italy to Greece to Istanbul to Alexandria to Beirut. So it's kind of a representation of that Mediterranean city.
And actually, you are contradicting sort of these urban scenes with a total darkness, where only a very little light is flashing. In the beginning, there is actually nothing. It's just black. And we hear a little bit of music, we hear a little bit of sound of waves, and we hear the sound of seagulls. And then we see this little light. And only after a few minutes, we see a fox sitting next to a lighthouse. So we are actually in a scene which is in the Mediterranean Sea, and you call the piece "The Sea Between My Soul." So how does this title actually come? What is this sea between my soul?
Of I don't know. Lately, it seems in the last few years, I used to be a poet very long time ago.
Right.
When I was a kid, and poetry just introduced me to other arts. Somehow I'm not a poet anymore, but somehow poetism is coming back in the titles of my works. Uh, I wanted something that is felt a little bit interesting, and actually it is grammatically wrong because it's between two things and then there's only one thing, but it's also like kind of the sea that splitted my soul, and almost like the sea that killed me, because somehow it's the sea that I used to live. I come from a city which is Beirut. It's on the Mediterranean Sea. Through the history, Beirut has been destroyed so many times. They said historically Beirut was destroyed 7 times, since the thousands of years. And too recently, in August 2020, there was a huge explosion in the city due to corruption. So you feel, and we have a huge history of civil war, you feel that this explosion always like is happening and it's going to happen again. And my relation to the sea has been always, it's my relation to sea has two sides. Sometimes you see it as a place where you can escape,
Right.
like it's somewhere where you can escape, but then to where there is something unknown, you're going to the unknown totally. And sometimes you see it as a border, like as if I'm stuck in this city, like I cannot just cross that sea. Probably this comes from the paranoia of also Lebanese people who've been living in wars, and there is always a huge borders, and you cannot freely travel with a Lebanese passport or with so many different passports. You don't have this kind of freedom of traveling and be like a free citizen of the world. So in a way, it's, you see that there is some kind of border, but in a way you think it might happen. And then for so many people, it's an homage for so many people, so many refugees, so many uh, who tried to escape in that sea and died for a better life, for freedom, for a better living, for human rights. And it has to do with that, so that's I feel always that sea. Sometimes I feel like I seem pessimistic, but I feel that sea, it became a land because usually you bury your dead bodies in the land. So it became a land because it became a cemetery somehow. And but for me, I always have takes on things in a very humoristic, like dark humor, black comedy stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, you are talking about a very, very serious subject here, and of course, about a very dark subject. But on the other hand, um, your work, The Sea Between My Soul, has so much uplifting moments, so much color in it, so much humor in it also. It might be dark humor, but there are moments which are really totally absurd. I think it's also okay to laugh at those moments, isn't it? I mean, is it?
I'm always laughing. It's, uh, I'm laughing in the worst situations sometimes, because we have a saying in Arabic. I don't know how I'm going to translate it, but I will say it in Arabic first. Maybe somebody who understands Arabic.
Yes.
شر البلية ما يضحك. So sometimes when the situation is so bad, it makes it so funny, because, and our word, funny enough, our word is becoming more surreal and more absurd. We don't have now, to be honest, answers to all these million questions. The world has been very quick nowadays. You know what's going on in so many places at the right moment. You feel helpless. You can't do anything. There's so many is happening in the world, especially now. You see it even more because we're sitting in front of our screens. We are in a lockdown. So I don't know where our mental health is going to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah,
But
there's also a layer in your work where you actually put this into the focus, I think, where you are talking about the differentiation between truth and fiction, and you say that even the gods can't really tell the difference anymore between truth and fiction, right? So we are to a certain degree lost, and sort of the areas meld together, and the border is not as clear anymore, right?
it's kind of it's something that I'm interested in, and I kind of like in my work. I don't know. The thing is, I've always worked in many other installations. That this is the first time that I do it in a form of something you watch on stage. But usually I do different installations and exhibitions, and I always like kind of create confusion through lies in the story. It's kind of, I call it lies, it's like forgery of documentation to make it look into fiction. I'm interested in fiction because it has something to do with imagination. It opens your imagination. The thing is, sometimes what I'm afraid of, that it's a kind of very dystopic scenario when fiction and reality, there's no border in it, and becomes even more weird. But it's actually this is what's the fun part of it as well sometimes. So confusion, I think it is my work is a reflection of the world that we're living in, where things are pretty confused.
Yeah,
We don't
well,
know what's
I
day and
think
night.
that it's something also that struck me especially about this work is how versatile you are with different genres, with different styles, with putting different things together. I mean, you are from a background where you studied acting, you studied being a regisseur, a producer, basically. You studied music, contrabass, and you are working as a musician, as an artist. You are making theater, you're making musicals. You just told us you were writing poems also. It's, I mean, you are basically doing everything. So it is really not possible to put you in any kind of box. And I think you are absolutely not interested in being put in a box, right?
I will quote. I recently saw an interview with an American artist called Theaster Gates, which he said something that he would like to have back the position of an artist, where the artist is an engineer, an
Mhm.
artist, a thinker, an artist. He understands music. He's an architect. He makes things in her own hands. I'm interested in that kind of an artist profile, to be honest, because more and more, and I will say it, I always have statements in things I say. I'm not interested at all in what is the artist are becoming. So I now the artists becoming more like almost like a corporate employee or a banker or thinking of how to answer, like you spend how much time you spend on answering emails and applying for funds instead of doing your creative work. And to be able to survive you have to do this in a way. Like I tried before. Now in the pandemic it put me in front of this question, and it's always a question, like how much this is going to take from my time, from my creative time. Because to think already you have life that you have to deal with and all these difficulties, but there is also your creative thinking, where it needs the time and the space, the healthy time and space to be creative. I think I'm lucky. I try to reduce as much as possible becoming a corporate artist, or let's say, but it's so sad that you can see also friends around you and how the art world is turning. Let's say more than music world, but it has to do a lot with not doing the thing, but actually just what is around it. It
Mhm.
takes so much time. So I'm interested in so many things, and it's just my interest drove me to be. I like music so much. I like so many different types of music. So I also like my listening is different. So also, so that's why I perform from experimental music to like dance Arab music to stuff with completely textural and noise music. But also I like folk, and that's
Ja-
why it's more
Jazz,
folk and
something that plays a big
rock.
role in your life, right? Jazz also plays a big role for you.
It played a long time ago, which and it there's always influences from jazz and rock
Mhm.
and psychedelic rock. But in the end, the form of this, like I chose a composer, singer, songwriter, which is Alan Bishop,
Mhm.
to write the song. I didn't do the music for this piece. I'm a big fan of Alan anyway. We worked before together in few projects, but this is our like biggest collaboration, and it is a form of like rock folk,
Yeah,
the outcome, and it's great for me. It doesn't look
yeah.
like my music, but it's actually fantastic. I really love the music so much. I think Alan did an amazing job, and I'm very thankful for him, and thankful also for the set designer, who's Hussein Baidoun. I would like to mention the names, and also the light designer, which is Charlie Ostrom, and
And you had, of course, to sort of rethink the whole thing a little bit due to the COVID situation because you couldn't put it on stage, but you had to do it in a video performance. So, in which way did you have to, sort of um, recreate your own work in order to make it work for a film?
the idea, I don't know, there was some kind of luck and unluck.
Mhm.
It's a kind of a lottery game. I don't know where it is. I will tell you a very interesting story. This work was supposed to premiere in Athens
Right. In April
in
last year, right?
in in March 13, 2020, and I think Corona, like COVID-19, was declared a pandemic on March 12th, probably, or March 13th. So on March 12th, the producer came and said, like, I have bad news. We cannot go on stage tomorrow. So that was very, very, very bad situation. But in a way, the work stayed on stage. for long because no one was allowed to go to the theater. And we were lucky in that, and we had the time to actually film it, to make a film format with like editing and cuts and different takes, and made it more convincing as film. It's like shots from in many cameras, and then there was a film crew. So anyway, damn it, it's not possible, but we need to adapt somehow because also art has to live.
And that's of course great that um, by watching the film we can actually participate in this fantastic work, the sea between my soul, that you put together there, and that is asking a lot of questions. You were talking about the aspect of the borders and the aspect of the sea being sort of a kind of border for you in your viewpoint from Beirut. Nowadays, you're actually living in Berlin. So what is your perspective now on where is sort of your Heimat? Where is your home? Where do you feel at home? Is Berlin really where your home is now, or what
It's
role does Beirut play for you nowadays?
uh, Beirut has changed so much since I left it.
Hmm.
You know, there was so many dramatic changes, the economic collapse. I was away, and I have a strong connection to Beirut, and mostly to the people and to my friends and to my family more than this place itself. Of course, it's a nostalgic. I was raised there, and finding home is always a big, big question. I don't know where is home yet, and that's make it more psychological instability because it's still. I also don't think Beirut is home anymore. It has a special place in my heart, but I don't know if it's my place because in that situation, that country, like with the very corrupted politicians and the history of corruption and blood, and somehow you feel that you don't want to be part of that as well. It's a strong statement and situation, but also I cannot handle this amount of death and poison, and things are not just happening. Corruption, you know, like probably some of the audience know the history of that place. And we, like, I lived there for 40 years, so I tried as much as possible to resist. Sometimes I'm not going to be declare myself as a hero that I will always resist. No, I couldn't change anything, to be honest. And I left, I ran away. I'm still looking for home. I might find it in Berlin. I don't know. Like, you know, depends.
Did you
Maybe
find it in your
maybe
work?
maybe Berlin is home starting from May to October because the winter period is very difficult.
But do you find a kind of home in your work, in the art?
uh, it's I can't tell. I just can't. To be honest, I can't live without it. It's like water and it's like water and food for me. It's all my life. I put all my emotions in my work, actually, all of it. I live it to it's on my skin, it's in my bones, it's in my flesh, in my blood. So I can't definitely live without art, without doing art or doing music, or also consuming, watching films and watching exhibitions and listening to music. I have, you know, it's also like a problem. It's not just I make art, and I'm a huge collector of music and books about art and you know, and literature, and I'm so interested in also what others do, and I like to do collaborative works with many people, and it's part of my practice.
Thank you so much. It was really fascinating to talk to you. Thank you so much for taking time. Thank you.
Thank you. It's actually time is all that we got now, no?
That's true. Thank you. And
Thank
hope to
you.
see you at some point in person.
Hopefully, we all hope that. Thank
Right.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye
Take care.
bye.
Bye. Thank you.